Welcome to Reflections, a program where we discuss values and virtues for the transformation of the individual and the society at large. I am Father George Ehusani, and I have a guest today. He is Dr. Okey Ikechukwu, MNI. You're welcome to the studio.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much. And thanks for reminding me of our meeting in the early 2000s, right?
Yeah, actually, mid-90s.
Mid-90s.
NUJ event.
NUJ event, yes. Dr. Ikechukwu is a philosopher. He has a PhD in philosophy, taught for 8 years philosophy at the University of Lagos. Thereafter, he worked as part of the editorial board of the Guardian newspaper. He's involved in communication a lot because he has served as special assistant to the Minister of Communication under the Obasanjo era. He has worked in building up the Nollywood to what it is today by assisting in the since Nollywood is under Ministry of Information
at the time,
of Information and Communication at the time, right? Was Information and Communication
and National Orientation.
And National Orientation. Dr. Ikechukwu has served under various governments and as senior advisor, as consultant. He served as head of communication, Ministry of Education. From when to when?
I was during the reforms under Ezekosili.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then we had him also serving on the editorial board of the Guardian in the 90s.
Yeah. That was 93 to 99 before we left to set up the Comet, which is now the Nation.
Okay. Is it the Comet that transited to the Nation?
Yes,
good.
Where I was chairman editorial board.
Dr. Ikechukwu is of the Developmental Specs Academy. And he's a senior fellow in business school of UNIZIK in Okey. Wow. Your career has spanned, congratulations, and he is a member of the National Institute,
yes,
MNI. Great. Dr. Ikechukwu, I have brought you to the studio today for us to discuss the present problem in Nigeria. The threats of the pro-Biafra people and the counter threat of the Arewa youths. Irresponsible statements have been made here and there in such a way that people don't seem aware of the consequences of this spewing out of hate speeches, hate posts, particularly in social media. The reactions that are coming are very frightening. And with your experience, wide range experience in the media, in communication, I think we need to discuss the role of the entertainment industry in getting us back on track. What the entertainment industry can do to get us from this just sitting on the teters all the time to a more united, a more a society where greater mutual understanding is fostered. Especially, what can the entertainment industry do to promote a more positive culture and to project a more humane, compassionate, loving culture to the rest of the world?
The first and major problem is that we have what I call a renegade entertainment industry.
Renegade?
Yes.
Wow.
By that I mean, entertainment industries in many advanced nations are seen as part of their cultural imperialism. Content of cultural imperialism, i.e., if you look at Hollywood,
yes,
Hollywood will always give you a film. If it's a drama where there are some issues, by the time somebody makes a call, the police turns up in 2 minutes.
Okay.
If there's a film where you see an American flag, it didn't appear there by accident. So the Department of State
is interested,
is funding, is monitoring. The very industry itself is part of the institution of the American campaign for world dominance.
So this is American cultural imperialism can be seen
nurtured into the scripts, into the content, into the output.
Okay.
So that you actually see the American state being projected as efficient, responsible, effective, responsive. It doesn't happen by accident. We have an entertainment industry that sprang off from the stage productions in the university. So the theater is an independent thing. And so from theater, we moved into the video and movie industry, but without being technically and experientially migrated onto that platform.
Yeah.
You're a playwright.
Yes.
You produce your plays.
Yes.
I'm a playwright. I produce my plays on campus. Then the video industry comes. I look at it and say, what are all these children jumping up and down? But they begin to dominate the space. And unlike you, thinking through your scripts, they have no real social message. Unlike you and I who are playwrights, the government doesn't even try to own them as well. That's why I started with speaking of a renegade entertainment industry. Not renegade that it is evil, but in the sense that it creates, runs its own scripts, lives in its own world, and without a sense of social responsibility, i.e., nothing is woven into it that enables it to think, wait, what will be the effect of what I'm doing? It is that loss, that failure to integrate, that failure of the state and public consciousness has translated into the crisis.
What you call failure of the state, isn't it also failure of the ivory tower, failure of the university system? Because you see, growing up, I read fantastic plays by the Femi Oshofisa, Olarotimi, Wole Soyinka, and so on and so forth. And one would have expected that when the video came, that some of these rich, culturally rich, value-imbued plays will get onto the video.
But it doesn't work like that. Yes, it will come. Remember that the artist is always a little off-key, both mentally and socially. He does what pleases him. So Oshofisa's play, yes, I taught in Unilag, but you also didn't know that there was Theatre 15 in Unilag, of which I was coordinator. It was a student, both PG and undergraduate students. I acted in Moremi play, stage play, and I was a lecturer.
Okay.
My own play was presented in the National Theatre, Voice of the Oracle.
Okay.
But the point being made here is that the migration didn't take place, not because the university failed.
Okay.
Shakespeare, if he was alive when his plays were being presented, would not have bothered very much whether it went on stage or not. Okay. The point is that we also had a technological disconnect.
Perhaps that's the point.
That technological disconnect, and the fact that they call it videography, not even a film, was viewed as frivolous. I remember when Oshofisa came for one of the productions, I remember his comments. One of his plays was presented by Theatre 15, so he came in to watch it and all of that. I made some passing comments about all these things they now produce on video, and he shook his head. Now, while you're there shaking your head, the world is moving on.
The world is moving on.
Precisely. So now the world is defined, even the industry, the showing-cars and all of them, they are not the ones we see as dominating the space.
Yes.
We hear about them as literature, but the content is not part of what has taken over the space. And the disadvantage is that those values, those defining elements that make us a people, which you find in scripts, are not part of what you have, because this is about hype, entertainment, what works for the moment, what is cool. Now, The Lion and the Jewel is not cool.
Yeah.
Yet, The Lion and the Jewel, as a student of literature, having read it, you are better situated within your cultural milieu.
And it is when you are better seated that you can actually launch to the rest of the world.
So now, this new one creates the illusion that you are part of the rest of the world, produces a film with fast-moving cars, all kinds of personalities which don't exist. And so you also have now a generational crisis, namely an entertainment industry that is finding it increasingly difficult to draw content from its own culture.
You see, I am aware that Shakespearean plays, Julius Caesar, Macbeth, all those, that they were actually used for entertainment in public theatre in England.
Yes, and also for education.
And people went in the evening, sat at theatres to watch these plays. People performed these plays, entertained, they were informed, they were educated. Now,
and they were also edified.
Yes. Now, and I'm saying, is entertainment meant to be just appealing to the baser elements, the baser levels of the human being, and not to inspire and edify. You use the word edify. What we have today in the renegade entertainment we're talking about, industry we're talking about, is appealing to the more base elements of the human being. That's the way I see it. And unfortunately, well, a lot of progress have been made by Nollywood. Go to any country, any English-speaking country, even French-speaking countries now, they watch our films. I'm told that after petroleum and which other, maybe customs, Nollywood may be the next foreign exchange earning enterprise in Nigeria. But I keep getting concerned. What are we exporting? What, just as you made the analogy with the American, with Nollywood and the American culture, what are we exporting? Are we exporting what we desire to export? Or do we sit down there and a rotten culture is being exported in our name
and on our behalf?
And on our behalf. Because you see, I go to Kenya often, and I get confronted by people who are who reflect on this thing and say, is this what life really is in Nigeria? Witchcraft, fast moving cars, witchcraft, guns, sex,
land quarrels.
Is this what life is in Nigeria? And I'm like, no. This doesn't represent, the mainstream life of Nigeria. If it represents anything.
Two things. First, the role of stage plays, even in content. Well, let me start from there. The world is shrinking into miniaturization and individualization of entertainment. Your phone, you can watch all the films you want on it. But nobody asks the question, why is it that while the world is inclining towards making the theater necessary, that all films produced in the West and in America are focused on theater? You see, the global European-American economy, particularly within the French and mainland Europe, has woven its economy into cosmetics, fashion, and these cannot market themselves independently, so you use the film.
I see.
That's why you have openings. That's why you have, it will be in the theater in so and so time, so people go there to watch. It's plain entertainment, because that's when fashion designers come to do their catwalk, and the rest of it is a multi-billion-dollar business.
I see.
And that's why they spend a lot of energy promoting reel-to-reel. That's the kind of old film
Yes, reel
for
reel.
cinemas. Yes. The world of today contradicts the cinema culture, because you have everything in MP4. So people, you don't think about it. Why would a film gross billions or hundreds of millions of dollars in the theater? You need to get people to the theater. Do you get it?
Yes.
Whereas it's a world that has made the theater unnecessary. So it's an intelligent calculation. If you look at all the support coming from France for the movie industry, it focuses on getting you output that will go to the theater. The funding will come to support Cannes Film Festival and the rest of it. If it's 10 naira that's coming, about 8 naira will service content from their economy, so it still drives. It's a different world. We don't understand what's going on.
We don't seem to understand
at all, and that's why their campaign against what they call videography subsists. That look, this thing is making it cheap, whereas you can make a lot more money if you hold the film back. But that's a different matter. Now, on the question of the cultural exports from Nigerian films, yes, 2003, we went for a program in the Graduate Institute of Management and Technology in Johannesburg. I recall on that trip, the DG of National Orientation Agency, then Idi Farouk, was with us, and it was a 5-day event. On the second day, there was this lady who was the logistics person for the whole entire program. During lunch, she came to join us. And we said, no, really, that, at least it's just quite private. Do you really eat people in Nigeria? She is a fan of Hollywood and Nollywood.
Do you really eat people?
Yes. I said, how? He said, no, in the films, you carry out sacrifices, they cut up all those parts, and then you have some eat people, there's a lot of witchcraft, and the person dies and they carry the body away. So I looked at Idi Farouk, I wanted to be sure. I said, well, do you find that surprising? She said, well, no. I said, well, actually, we do. We do. If, for instance, if you take she said, "What you really do?" Idi and I started laughing. I said, "My dear madam, if we do eat people, there will be a population crisis in the place." You know, and we went on and on. But the truth is that South Africa, Kenya, Zambia, Zimbabwe, they have, not only is Nollywood very popular, it completely colors their perception of Nigerians and the understanding of Nigeria. So whereas it has the, so to say, the hype of being known, the truth of the matter is that it defines us as barbarians to the rest of the world, and the producers are not aware of this negative socio-cultural mileage you are getting. They are thinking more of the money they are making. And you come here, being an industry in which one has have had to operate closely with them, you find that those who fund and market are actually the major issue. I recall 2004, the New York Film Festival. I was head of delegation from Nigeria to take all of them, Omotola, Ramsey Noah, the actual active individuals for that program. And a couple of things came up because it was a 10-day program. First of all, individually decent people could deal with a lot of education in terms of how to better manage themselves for outcomes. So when we got to the US, they tried to strike up a deal for film marketing. Those from Nigeria and a group from the US. So we also met with the Washington County authorities. So much money was being made from Nigerian films, and the Nigerians were not getting it. Well, at that meeting, it turned out that in a year, there's a huge intake of over $100 million on Nigerian films, on which tax wasn't paid at all.
To Nigeria?
To anybody, even to the US. So we found that out, had the second meeting. Then I began to feel uncomfortable. Knowing America, this exchange will turn out to be a discussion about tax evasion. And I called the minister. I said, see what I'm thinking. He said, what do you? I said, the best thing is to abort the conversation. Because even if the $100 million is recovered, it's not going to come here. Now, the 2 points I'm making. Number one, Nollywood makes a lot of money out there, which doesn't come to those who work for it, and which also defines us badly in their perception, showing we are way back in ancient history. Secondly, or is it thirdly now, Nollywood has not become a platform that can tell a single story. Because each person, as he's producing, is interested only in what he does. Take, for instance, the movie Stark, which we did, because up till 2003, there hadn't been any real interface between the Arewa filmmakers and the South. Now, when that movie Stark was being planned, the first problem the minister and I had was pressure from filmmakers from the South that, no, don't get those in the North involved. Those in the North say, no, don't get those in the South involved. So we had to hold a series of meetings, create a merger, and hold that joint platform. The major issue really is that the industry is fractured because there's no central philosophical underpinning on the basis of which it arose. Individual creativity. Father Ehusani produced the film is wonderful. Okay, Ikechukwu has done his own, and we then assume because we're all marketing the same product, there's actually an industry. It isn't.
Because there's more to industry than
capacities of the same type operating in the same field.
There's no cohesion. There's nothing that bonds us together in terms of values and ideological orientation.
Yeah, that is it. And you see, when we then said let's also create a movie industry council, a movie practitioners council, and all of that. In the midst of it, others are campaigning. It's terrible. You know, no matter what the government does, you remember that the Jonathan government gave, is it 2 or 3 billion? Thereabouts to the industry. What was it used for? Where did it go? The point is, money cannot create a philosophical understanding that you are a people. What you say about yourselves define you, and that what you say about yourselves define the Nigerian state. That has to happen. It's not happening, and Nollywood is not structured in such a way today for it to happen.
This is a pity, really.
Yes, if you are to get the if you are to get the older actors,
yes,
in the sector to sit down to draw a template with the new ones, first a quarrel will break out. But who says there's anything wrong with quarrel? The only thing is that if you end the conversation before they've had enough time to exhaust their abuses, then the quarrel subsists, and that's what's been happening. They are called together to discuss money and programs with money. Now, that's not industrial cohesion at all. Okay, you're a reverend father of the Catholic Church. This man is of the Pentecostal. This is an imam, and they are called. Let's discuss religious harmony.
Yes.
And we have 3 hours to do that. It's not going to happen. In 3 hours, you can plan a conference where people like you and I will get up and make fine speeches about religious tolerance.
But to talk about religious cohesion, first of all, you need to bond them together.
Precisely. Now, the bonding is not taking place in the industry, and because there's money coming in from productions, the chance keeps receding further and further.
Yeah. So, what can be done? Because you see, you have raised a very important question. The whole issue of the ideological framework for a movie industry that hopes to export, let's say, our values we hold there, because we do have some values traditionally that we hold there, the family values, respect for elders, hard work, and so on and so forth. So there are values that we would like to be known for as a people. Fear of God, hard work, respect for elders, love of family life, and so on and so forth. How do we get these disparate actors and organizations within the industry? How do we get them now achieve some cohesion to even begin to discuss common values?
Well, quite honestly, usually when conversations or questions like this arise, most of the time people think of the role of government. I don't. It will have to come from non-government actors, unfortunately. When you say bring them together, I'm the minister. I know nothing about movie industry. I'm probably not even interested.
So how can you? Yeah.
So what is it? I call them. Look, okay, let's try and work together. These hollowed speeches, and we actually work together. We have a ceremony. You shake hands. We have this event. We all pledge to commit and produce a better image. After that, is in a communique, is in a document in the office. I move on to the next program. You see, today the Leadership Institute exists in Arlington, Virginia, because of Reagan's former chief of staff, Morton Blackwell.
Okay.
Reagan and his people came to the conclusion that the values of the American state are practically successfully subverted by a new hippie culture. America is a conservative state. It's the only state that begins with the name of the Almighty in its constitution. It's the only state that is even annoyingly religious to the modern world if you look at the constitution and the foundations of the American state. But it's now been overtaken by the extreme opposite of what it's supposed to represent. So Blackwell thought, look, let's set up the Leadership Institute to recruit young Americans, regroom them on the traditional American values, and get them into the Ministry of the Interior. So when I went for that program, I was surprised. That's what they were doing. Progressively, deliberately recreating an industry that's dominated by huge, big funders who look for what will sell. Gossip, witchcraft, robbery, debauchery. Even if you come to me as the billionaire financing it, you're not going to achieve anything. Because what I want is at the end of production to make money.
I wonder whether the people who watch these movies, because I mean you go to people's homes and stacks of these movies, I wonder whether they are aware that what we are taking in, and you watch one or the other, the storylines are almost the same, and just as you have mentioned, gossip and witchcraft and money and things, I wonder whether people are aware that this is that the movie industry is a purveyor of culture, and that this is some what did you call the hippie culture just now? Some underculture is being traded, and
successfully too.
Yeah, and that the more people watch this, the more they become what they watch. I wonder whether people generally are aware, so that more people begin to raise concerns beyond those in the industry or people like you who have played some critical role, that more people raise concerns about what we're having all over the place, so as to begin to say, let's talk, you know.
You see, my concern there is that already matters are, I don't want to say they've gotten out of hand, but they almost have. We have today a predominantly superstitious society where values of superstition are being reinforced.
What we taught in the 60s we had left behind
are being reinvented and renourished and everything, so that the job of ordained people like you is being made more complicated. It's creating a subculture undermining the values of spirituality that is being preached, so that the person you're telling about prayers, how the Lord is all powerful and how his confidence will ward off evil, at the back of his mind feels the need to keep this small thing that old man gave him just in case of an emergency. So it is subversive of spirituality. It's subversive of our humanity.
Yes.
And it keeps degrading us into thinking we are Africans and just Nigerians. No, we are first of all human beings with a cultural base. Now the point I'm making being, you raise the question of, do they really understand the impact? No. But beyond that, those acting, managing the institutions of state, do they also understand the damage being done to their effort?
Yes.
No. So a counterculture will have to arise from conscious reference to these things. If I'm in the pulpit, I will draw attention to
what is going on
deliberately.
Yes.
There will be at least one person in the congregation it will help.
Yes.
It may impact on others. But if we're looking to government, what government? The man you're saying, okay, is it because I'm a minister then I'm an angel? It doesn't follow. I may also be one of those who speak in tongues. Even though as a Christian, I never saw where the Lord said, you must speak in tongues. But I now grow up after pray, okay, now all of you speaking, and everybody will start mumbling. And yet, all of us have the Bible and claim to be Christians. Yes. Now, I'm the kind of person who is the minister. I'm of no value at all as an agent for elevation of political, spiritual, or social consciousness.
Is this not also a failure of education in some sense? I had Father Patrick Esiche here, and he professor of anthropology, and he says what he thinks is happening in this country is a failure of critical thinking, that people are not really using their brains. That is why they are so vulnerable and so gullible. It's so easy to because you see, God gave us, we were created Homo sapiens, and we were supposed to think. Why is it so easy for even somebody, there are people who claim to have PhD, and you see some illiterate who holds the Bible can easily...
And they're trembling before him.
Yeah. So why is it... So people are not thinking. That's the way some people... That's where Father Patrick thinks. Yes.
Well, my take is that I will disagree with that assertion. People are thinking, but not along the lines he expects them to. That's all. It's the same thing when people say, you know, these people in the National Assembly don't know what they are doing. It's a lie. They know what they are doing because ab initio, if I made up my mind that going to the National Assembly, I was going to make sure I make as much money as possible. I know what I'm doing. It's just that it's not what I should be doing. Now, people are not thinking in terms of ennobling values.
Yes.
But let's trace the root. The foundation was taken from them. What's the impact of military rule? A coup occurred. You make an announcement. You make me a governor.
Values upside
down, because before then I'd never managed 50,000.
We will bring this segment to an end here, and we need to have a second segment to discuss further this whole thing about the entertainment industry, particularly what it can do for in our present circumstances. Thank you for coming to the studio.
Thank you.
I know, for example, at my age, there are some words till today I cannot say, but you find 3, 5, 7-year-old children just peeling it on the street, and it doesn't matter. And in fact, it is seen as a level of sophistication.
A big man was recently handcuffed, and hair was let loose. And I had to ask some of my colleagues, are you aware that on a daily basis, the ordinary people who have committed
minor malicious
offenses are not only handcuffed, they are leg chained?
Yes.
But nobody talks about them.
And thrown into Black Maria.
Thrown into Black Maria. Sometimes the Black Maria is put in the sun.
The tragedy of the military coup is set in motion a range of issues that so destabilize this country. And the result is that we've ended in the last 20 or 30 years with an academic community that has become so traumatized that it has also lost the capacity to even do what intellectuals and academicians ought to do.
When any generation failed to capture young men between the age of 15 and 25 in their generation and harvest them and deliberately and intentionally give them a sense of direction, a sense of national vision, and give them a meaning as to what it means to be a man. So when you fail to do that, instead of using their energy to build their environment, they will use it to destroy
everything that was ever built.
So if you look at what's going on in Nigeria, it's as a result of failed attempts, not just one generation, but several generations.
I have with me again in the studio my friend Dr. Okey Ikechukwu. Dr. Ikechukwu, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Dr. Ikechukwu has vast experience in communication and information. Even though his base is philosophy, he's a teacher of philosophy, he's a management consultant, he teaches right now leadership. And we are happy to have him in the studio to discuss the entertainment industry and our national integration. We have serious issues with national integration, with lack of a sense of national cohesion. We have disparate individuals and groups and tribes and regions, everybody speaking his own language. We don't seem to have a sense of a common cause. I do say that if you go to America and you ask the primary school kid what is the core value of America, immediately they tell you. But if you ask, I mean, I was at a forum of lawyers and judges at some point, and I asked, and I couldn't get immediate agreement on what our core national values are. So how can we use the entertainment industry? Because the entertainment today is so widespread, and in almost every home people are hooked to television, and in Nigeria people are hooked to the media, to the Nollywood and other forms of entertainment, and it goes beyond Nigeria. We export what they show. How can they be the vehicle for the much needed national integration, the much needed values for nation building? How can the entertainment industry and our entertainers and comedians, by the way, how can they all be used to help push this nation forward in a wholesome manner?
Well, when we speak of the entertainment industry, I'd like us not to limit it to Nollywood.
Okay.
Because there are layers. Tales by Moonlight, that's entertainment. And you recall in the past there was the NTA Theatre in Jos.
Oh yeah, the Cockroach and Dop era.
Look, those Tales by Moonlight inspired a younger generation of Nigerians to see that most of their Moonlight tales cut across cultures.
Yes.
For most of us, Saminaka was a recurring name.
Yes.
I never knew where Saminaka was. But you then found that the tortoise was a dominant actor across all Nigerian cultures and subcultures.
Sure. Yes.
He created a form of homogeneity people were not conscious of, a base on which you could take off from. All of that is gone. And so you find also that one. Then at the other level, private entertainers, comedians, what do they project? The negative qualities of the tribes. They will market the northerners carrying a stick and chasing cattle. They will market the Igbo man talking about money. So again, it's not there.
Reinforcing the prejudices that we are supposed to get rid of.
Yes, and that had actually, we're becoming less and less conscious. Then you come to mainstream Nollywood. Mainstream Nollywood is not driven by any philosophy of integration, national or private. It's driven by scripts. Those who pay for the scripts and those who can market them. So when we speak of using entertainment for national integration, let's first of all find out from where it went wrong. as we mentioned earlier, the Nollywood films are available. Millions are watching them. But let's also note, you have less than 2 million subscribers to DSTV all over the country. You can Google and confirm. So this popularity we are talking about, we have to ask ourselves, what is entertainment communication with a definite objective and a storyline? What are the platforms of communication other than the popular one we know? Storytelling at home,
yes.
Teachings in schools.
Yes.
In addition also to getting hold of who you call credible platforms of communication in our local environment. If I go to Kano, I want to get the people to take me seriously. And I get a few imams to take me seriously, first of all. I've got 80% of the population. Mm-hmm. If I get the emir, that's the end of the story. If I go to the southeast and I'm able to get the town union president, I've got the town. Now we're hoping to use entertainment to change values without attention to the platforms,
these various platforms
for communication credibility that form the basis for the superstructure we're looking at as Nollywood. That is where to begin, actually. Let's suppose you get wonderful scripts about national integration, the type you have in October 1, government-sponsored, is on TV, you get 10 musicians to sing One Nigeria. They are paid to do that. Many people don't have light, so they don't watch it. You make it on CD, nobody will take a CD on Nigerian unity to watch. You see, we adopt modes of communication for integration, which even we ourselves pay no attention to. Mm-hmm. So you have a leadership elite that has dissociated itself from the goals it wants to achieve. Take an example.
The point you are making before you continue that, okay, whatever song they sang last year on October 1, who remembers now?
Even after the event that day. Mm-hmm. Nothing. It doesn't make impact anywhere.
So we just waste money
on ceremonies
and
go home and say, wow, national unity. Nothing of the sort. So you then find that progressively it's become the norm. You remember there was a production, not in our character. Mm-hmm. Fine, very well produced. We don't do this, we don't do this. In our character, what does our represent? In my village, I understand what it means. In the broader Nigerian state, I don't. What is our character? In an environment where if John is caught, John's brothers will say, no, leave him, he's our own thief.
He's our own thief.
The other people have their thief. This is our thief. So going back to the matter of integration and all of this, greater activities by people who are driven by a concern for true humanity will be the solution.
How?
Fine. This your program is one.
Okay.
There are people who listen to it and for them they walk away each time with one small nugget. You see, there's what do you call it? An invasion army perspective on social transformation that will never work, and that's what people have. Let's change Nigeria. Nigeria wasn't ruined in one day.
So it won't be changed in one day.
It will not happen.
It's one person at a time.
Wherever you are, keep doing what you're doing. The frontiers will move back. Today we have a leadership elite that's nurtured on consumption.
Just consumption.
Yes, you know that most people supposedly didn't really, if you were to get them and get people honestly who should represent us, they will never be in the National Assembly. But they're the ones making laws. We are calling them the excellencies. A man drives in a convoy of 9 cars. He's sitting in one of them, doing 140 on a village road just to go and greet his mother. Now, children are saying, I want to be like that man. Now, so you see the extent of the damage. When you now gather a predominantly similar species of persons with perspectives for an event, each will be waiting to make his own speech and go home. He is not there to change Nigeria. So it's a public ceremony. That's why after the opening ceremony, those you are supposed to speak to as leaders to change the event,
they go away. I mean,
so why are you there?
Yeah, so I have gone to a number of conferences like that, and I stay all night to prepare a talk.
And those leaders, you came to speak with.
And those I came to speak with
have left. Yeah. In fact, the last one I anchored at International Conference Center, it involves both military. It had to do with what was it? Human rights issues and the rest of it. Unfortunately for them, I was moderator, and it was live. And I told them there was going to be no tea session. Those of you who are here, PRO, Army, Nigeria, and the rest, you are the people who need to hear what is being said. And this is live. 1 hour is 3 million by the organizers. So, and it's not our custom to get to the farm, after undressing, we go and
Go and
eat.
take your egg. No.
But
Get to business.
Yes, there was no tea. They all stayed to the end.
Because if there was tea break, they are gone.
After that, they take photographs and go. So you see that you're talking about how to remedy the situation. You can see that the institutions of state are procedurally designed to be incapable of intervention because the feedback system they design, they have no straw to draw from it. You've called people to tell me what's wrong with agriculture. And we come together. As minister, I come. You're there to tell me what to do, right? I address you, enter my car and go. Why did I call you? So that's why my faith in big intervention doesn't exist at all. My faith in suddenly calling our Nigerian youth to change them doesn't exist. It exists in small interventions that might one day generate those who will do it. Clinton became president because he listened to Kennedy. Adenro Ogunsoya became who he became because he listened to Zeke. Now we are thinking of what will happen. Like when my boss then, Ojo, who were fighting corruption and the rest of it, my consistent position with him was that look not for laurels in this fight. Hope that there's somebody who will be so inspired by your intervention that probably the next 10,
will be mentored,
15,
yes.
20, 30 years would be the change Nigeria needs.
Talking about mentoring and entertainment industry, are there any mechanisms that we could adopt? Because before we came into the studio, we talked about going to schools to speak to challenge the children, to mentor them. Are there any mechanisms that could be adopted to influence the content of the entertainments in primary schools and high schools? You know, there's all forms of entertainment activities in primary schools and secondary schools. Are there any mechanisms that could be adopted to make inputs into those entertainment enterprises, so that as the primary school children are entertaining themselves, there is some content, there are values, so that it's not just to dance
and laugh and dance,
but that there is some values that they
can
take away with it. Now, how could such things be done in some small schools and spread around? Because that will go along the line of what you are saying, changing Nigeria one day at a time, one person at a time, one school at a time.
But I think in that regard, you know, children are totally dependent and vulnerable at that level.
Yes.
So mentoring would focus on the teachers and head teachers.
Okay.
Because they will be the moderators of content that is being put out. They are the ones who produce, who organize them for dances, for plays, for recitations.
Even if children write those things, they edit.
Yes. Now, we have teachers, particularly at that level, who are neither teachers, nor mentors, nor guides. Example, you mentioned that I was in the Ministry of Education sometime. Yeah, Federal Ministry of Education. And we found out that between 2000 and 2006, that the primary school teachers hadn't seen the school curriculum, all newly recruited teachers. And they'd been teaching for 6 years.
I've not seen the school curriculum.
No, there was none. And you don't want to go into the details of all the rest of it. Now, the point that's leading to is that, yeah, like you say, starting small, let's actually begin mentoring and professionalization workshops for teachers, beginning with individual schools. Not where you call motivational speakers who will come and say, you know, as teachers, you ought to inspire these children. All that is rubbish.
Give them the technical,
give them steps they need to take to impact the lives of the children. That's the kind of thing we should do that for teachers. And I do actually mentoring and parenting programs. You do that so that the teacher is trained to understand that he's doing one of the two most dangerous jobs in the world. The two most dangerous jobs for me are teaching and preaching. So you're also doing the most dangerous job. So as a teacher, all you need to do is just point somebody in the wrong direction. The person is doomed and damned.
Yeah.
Now these teachers, if they're sufficiently prepared, that's all. Imagine, okay, we had an Amadu Bello as a leader. At some point, he was sitting and a teacher was standing at the other end of the room. If that teacher had given him the wrong direction, we won't be talking about and that should make teachers realize the serious solemnity of their calling. And I think it's in that sense that if there's a school-to-school campaign focusing on teachers, not academic content, character,
Yeah. Of course, it's character, because in the year 2007, I joined a few members of faculty of UNILAG to produce a book on university education today. And I remember my own contribution was, graduate of character and learning, Quo Vadis. What has happened to graduates of character and learning? Actually, without character, you produce smart crooks.
Yeah.
Literally, smart crooks that are able to do what Evans,
without compunction.
Yeah, without compunction. So, training in character. And we can no longer, perhaps what you are suggesting is that we can no longer leave training in character just to the dramatic person, the people who are in that school. Meaning we need to, from outside, help schools, help local organizations inject values, so that we'll be making an impact, not necessarily as teachers in those high schools or primary schools, but as mentors who go in to support the teachers.
Precisely. And who will then make the teachers see themselves more as guides,
yes,
than transmitters of academic content.
Yes.
Because in the university itself, what has happened is that the bulk of the best have left. Normally, the best graduating students are
used to remain in the university.
They are not there. The second best and third are not there.
Yes.
Most of those who are there, who after looking for a job for 3-4 years, they go and crawl through a master's program
and go to the university.
End up as lecturers. That's why, as a lecturer in UNILAG, a student in my postgraduate class was caught cheating. And he was a lecturer in Agoiwe at the time. Cheating in the exam, a lecturer. And that's why today too, you find, like you said at some point, professors will be talking to you, and for every 6 sentences there's bad grammar.
Yeah.
So also professors who, if you look at their previous works, technically they scored 0, because when your research, 20% is for technical quality, footnoting, bibliography.
They score 0.
Many schools no longer know that that's part of what you check in scholarship. So university education is even worse than producing smart crooks. Is now producing Ogboju crooks. Smartness implies some finesse. But even now, it's a question of braggadocio. He's no longer smart. And you tell him this is not. He said that, look, as a lecturer, that what he wants is to, in the next 3 years, generate enough money to build a 3-story building as hostel near the school.
So he's a businessman.
He's a businessman, and how would you pay what he asks for in order to pass?
Now, all these are part of the ills that we see in society. Let's zero in, before we close this segment, zero in on what you foresee. I mean, having such experience, wide experience in the media, in communication, and especially in the film industry and so on. How can we, under the present circumstances, the scenarios are not the best they could be, but how can we, what kind of architecture, what kind of engineering, social engineering, can go into prodding our entertainment industry, the various elements of the entertainment industry, towards helping to build national values, towards helping to build national integration? How?
We should begin with the social media.
We should begin with the social media, okay?
There are bloggers. There are bloggers associations. How many people have called them to a workshop, to a training, to a major event? You only think of them when you have something to spread. So where will they, from where? Is it from the air they will get that sense of national duty? No.
So we can actually call them for workshops, call them for training.
Sit through, even retreat.
Yes.
Because
why not? Yes.
With that, it then begins to occur to them, okay, probably I should refer to Father George before I make outputs. Today, they have no sense they need to refer to
anybody.
And the logic of that sector is that your nuisance value
gets you
up there.
Yes.
So if you create a sense of social responsibility, it's an intervention that can distill up to 40% out of the mischief mainstream. Progressively, you distill more. So they're only insulted or used, but not cultivated.
Yeah, I mean, that people do not know that those who have a lot of social capital on internet are often those who can insult more.
Precisely.
Nuisance value.
Society.
Yes.
So cultivate them. You pull them out of mischief. That has to be done deliberately, consciously, and in a sustained manner. Because right now, where you're talking about mainstream, even Nollywood, they're all a little bit of old school. Social media is per second by the second on the second. Before it will be on the hour. No. And it keeps going. So that is one aspect of it. And then also, we speak of entertainers, comedians. We invite them for events. Who has ever heard of a comedian's retreat in Nigeria?
I had an incident on this comedian thing. The church where I was parish priest was organizing harvest, and they came out with this smart idea. They thought of bringing a comedian for the pre-harvest dinner. We had this pre-harvest dinner, and I sat down there, and what did I hear? The comedian was ridiculing, mimicking, making jest of a handicapped person, a physically challenged person, to use for entertainment in a church setting at a church event. Dinner.
Good heavens.
Running down, actually, it was a stammerer. He was running down a stammerer. He was, he was making jest of stammerer. I heard it and I went and grabbed the microphone.
That's it.
You
not
don't
here.
Not here.
Not here.
This is a place to affirm the stammerer that the society puts down. This is a place to encourage him. And this is not a place to run. And I don't see that happening many times, where the comedians, like you said, we need to bring the comedians together and train them. We have not been doing so. So it means that even for me, it is not enough that I grab the microphone off the comedian and say we don't do this here.
But it's important you did at that time.
Yeah, at that time. But that I should go beyond that to say, call the comedians in this vicinity and have a retreat for them and tell them that you guys are doing important job, but you need some content, and then you need to beware of contents that run down people. That, because look at what comedians do these days with all the ethnic and tribal
sentiments
that we have,
and stereotypes.
They use it, people laugh, but then
you're enforcing
the wrong.
Yeah. So that can happen where comedians, but if they are approached in terms of come let us teach you, that's why it's also important not to assume that everybody who has a title will be useful in such a retreat. Many come to talk down on people based on paper they've written, as distinct from people who have the passion and the calling and who can affect the soul of others when they speak. So that has to be done, not to teach. They know their job is to nudge them onto realizing that actually a modification of content will lead to a modification of result. Perception. That's why we think some of you have class. That's why it seems some don't. Because if you're preaching the gutter and emphasizing it, we know you belong there. If you're talking about the gutter and how to get out of it, you're helping. That is it. Then we now move to mainstream media. NTA has the widest reach. AIT has very wide reach, has the advantage of being presumed to be slightly more objective. Channels has a very wide reach, but with a perception of also a generational advantage with a lot of young people. If we have enough content in this, unfortunately people have light, the impact will be useful to the wider and larger society. Nollywood will remain what it is for a long time because it's hijacked by financiers. Who has called financiers together? The last meeting I had with them, that was when they suspended some people, and that was 2004, Motola & Co. Suspended them for quite some months. And also marketers. One of the major issues I kept driving was, what you fund is what people read, and you're largely responsible or partly responsible.
So you fund gutter culture.
And people being misled. And the argument was that this is what people want. I say, no problem. You have children. All your children, each one wants to lick 50 cubes of sugar every 3 hours.
Do you give them?
What's your role as a father? That this money you have is to enable you condition output. But you're using it to place people below the level where they should be. There's a responsibility, spiritual responsibility connected with it. So I believe that you see, it should be possible to get together in Hollywood. Like I say, people must start from where you are. Is it possible to get some of the major actors? Madu Chikwendo was, I recall, he was one of those. He's now very big in the place. Get hold of Madu Chikwendo and have a private conversation with him. Chikwendo, are you Christian or Muslim? Do you believe in God?
Do you believe in something? Yes.
If the Lord were standing here,
would you fund this? Would you do this?
What are these things you're doing? Would you? How much of it will fit into what you say, my son, I bless you for? That's because in the end, every person is a human being. And many miss, as they grow bigger, they miss the opportunity to be approached by people who can tell them the truth, who can still rescue them even as their soul is crying. And when the opportunity comes, those who have it do not pay attention to his title. Say, my friend, listen to me. Lazarus forgot, not Lazarus, Zacchaeus forgot he was bigger than Okonjo-Iweala. He was a finance minister, so to say. What was it that drove him to climb a tree? A man who ordinarily every day doesn't walk on the ground because he's carried on that distance. One of the biggest men in Israel at the time. The hunger of his soul made him forget his earthly titles. We have to pick at the human being inside the title to pick out those who can change society.
You have Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of values. And we have a situation somebody referred to on this program that most Nigerians are remaining on the first or second level.
Hungry.
Yes.
They're hungry.
They're just about
day-to-day survival reflexes. Yeah.
Yes. Now, and we are talking of an entertainment industry that can help to raise, because you see, if people's level is raised along the hierarchy of values, if people begin to reflect on transcendence,
it will be a different world.
It will be a different world. Then you go beyond ethnic bigotry, you go beyond materialism, you go beyond any form of hatred, because you want to transcend, and transcending yourself means reaching out to others and bringing them.
I have a problem with that typology.
Well, yeah, I'm not taking it wholesale.
I understand.
Yeah.
I want to take it, probably fault it from the very foundation. Ours has never really ever been a very wealthy society. Go back 50 years, poverty was the norm in terms of, you just eat once or twice a day, go to the farm and the rest of it.
Yet.
So, there is no direct relationship between material poverty and strength of character. If anything, it's the other way around.
Yes.
It is because these values of consumption are nurtured and emphasized. That is why it prevails.
That is why it is where it is.
Yes, there's an Igbo saying that the goat follows the person who is carrying palm frond. Goat feeds on palm frond. Today is taken as a philosophy of followership. The man who has money is the one who leads. No. Traditionally, that proverb was an admonition. It is only a fool that is loyal on account of what will enter his stomach. But here is a new generation that understands it to be a philosophy of leadership. Now, my take is that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, valid as it is summarily subverted even by your calling. Because it's not because you were well fed that you decided as a young man to be a priest. Do you see? Some begin from transcendence. So that when that is, unless you address hunger, you can move to the new level.
Actually,
not you.
Yeah, actually, not exactly so that a lot of people see it. From the way I see it, is that even the wealthy in this society, because like you have said, traditional 50, 100 years ago, a lot of people didn't had very little.
Just 1 meal a day.
Yeah, and yet we had philosophers. We had people who were thinking and reflecting on something
people who
more.
shrank from stealing.
Yes, and they wouldn't steal even though they were poor. So you didn't have to this primitive instinct to acquire stomach infrastructure. It is not quite true, because there were people who would rather die than steal.
Do what is wrong. No.
So, but what some people are pointing out is that what happened? How is it that today people are remaining on the level of just satisfying the base instincts?
You know why? Leadership is also about, for me, there's some level of elitism in leadership. You must nurture, manage your instincts and passions in order to guide others without going bust. When you draw people who have not so distilled themselves, their own appetites and reflexes becomes the dominant paradigm.
I think that is the issue.
Everyone.
I think that is the
issue.
So
those who are really prepared are in the background, feeling scandalized, and the horde of barbarians take over the place.
This is the issue. I mean, and Nigerians must recognize that we have the odd situation where we're not led by our first 11s,
No.
we're not led by second 11s, maybe not even by our third 11s. Just as you said that traditionally it used to be that those who made the best brains remain in the universities. That is not the case. Traditionally, Plato talked of the philosopher king. Now we now have a situation where any crook that makes money, if Evans, the one that was caught for being a kingpin of kidnapping,
Could have been a senator in next year.
Yes, the next
governor.
Yes, or governor. I mean, if he can mobilize enough money, he made $1 million from somebody. He could have just gone for government. And we have a society that is not asking of people's antecedents.
No.
I mean, recently we had the story of a senator who graduated and then went into House of Rep and went now. And I asked, so what work did he do in his life? And now he has 10 cars or 12 cars. So what work did he ever do in his life? Maybe he was a talk for somebody.
And how can he understand effort?
Yes.
Diligence.
Yes.
Mentoring.
Yes.
Social responsibility. These are meaningless concepts.
So in every sector, in the entertainment industry, we have people who have not thought through their content, or who are just thinking of money, the demand and supply, and then churn out products that are harmful when it comes to on the long run. Then in the political sector, we have people who have no business being in leadership, leading us. What can we do to turn things around? You have suggested that we can influence people one at a time, mentor people one at a time, go to schools, talk to the teachers who can influence.
That's at the level of social engineering. Then at the level of the broader national politics, for me, I see a progression from 99. The kind of people who came out in 99, 2003, slight improvement. 2007, fewer people could get away with forged certificates in the courts and all of that. But the element of rigging remains. The element of wrong role modeling remains. The element of chieftaincy titles going to the wrong people remains. That's setting the wrong precedent. But what I see very likely happening is that we, not out of any deliberate design, but progressive socio-political maturity, we are likely to end up with a pattern of voting that will incline more and more towards what people believe.
Okay.
Based on their experiences.
That's very optimistic of you.
It is, but the question you will ask is, what time frame am I working with? It's not about tomorrow. Because no matter whatever campaign you begin is bound to be largely superstructural. There was an experiment we did in Anambra years back, and by the time we were prepared, we had 20 representatives from each ward. And so they were able to monitor elections from their houses without INEC accreditation. And we're the only ones who are the best in terms of we're able to know where there should have been 10 polling booths and there were only 2, etc. Social engineering must be seen as different from what happens in government ceremonies. Commitment. If I'm going to contest the elections today, it will not billboards are good. Negotiation with power holders are good,
but
discussion with youth leaders,
grassroots,
women leaders, traditional rulers, one-on-one. This is what I think should happen. This is how I see it. This is how it's been. Market leaders, the logic of money will be there. But you see, they say that you cannot stand before the truth and refute it. Refutation means proving is not true.
Yes.
But you can deny, you can refuse to believe. So that level of campaign, the political education that creates the ferment towards the elections is not part of our political system yet. It's both vote buying and doorkeeper's philosophy. As elections are approaching, oh, Father George is the one in charge of this area, so I go to him, he hands me over his loyalists. That is still happening. It will for now be inevitable. It will also mean that incumbents can also hold their position, partly because of their performance, but also partly because they can balkanize the opposition. My take in all of this is beginning, like you say, from wherever you are, intervening wherever you can, Not looking to be praised for your results.
No, of course.
But looking for one individual or two here and there who are affected, because in the end there's a supreme judge who will one day ask you, while you passed that place and that man was crying for enlightenment, did you utter that useful word? No, I was hurrying to the stadium.
No.
Where nobody will hear you because the mic is poor, but the man whom he sent you to speak with on the road, you ignored him.
Yeah.
Those are the things. So we're a laurel-seeking
Society.
elite.
Yeah.
And therefore, because we are looking for laurels, we focus on programs that will be on network news.
Big programs and ignore the small ones.
Did you not see that thing I did? Whereas there's a young man or a young woman you will have inspired who will have done that big thing when his time is due.
It's called mentoring. Mentoring, making impact and changing one person at a time, one day at a time. I have a relationship with some slum schools, and long-standing relationship now, maybe going to 7-8 years, and I can see that there will be an impact in the future, because I get close to a primary school. I get close to a class in a primary school, and I relate with the teachers, and I relate with through the teachers to the children, and they see me as some kind of guardian, some kind of supporter, some kind of whatever. And I can imagine that if I can make more time to be with these children and to be with the teachers, I can imagine that the influence that will, this will over time. It's not going to be in the news. Nobody will know about it. Doesn't matter. But that, like, as you said, something will be planted in these children. And if I do it deliberately with a program, with a set of values and ideas, and support the germination of these values and ideas in these children as they grow, then I will be playing my role.
Precisely.
It may never be in any newspaper, may never be in any television, it doesn't matter. And nobody may ever give me an
award for it.
We are a society
who is competent to give an award?
Wait now, in this country we seek awards too much. I mean, every day you are hearing of one award after the other. The society is rotten, the society is degenerate, the society is going down. That's the era in which we are getting more and more awards.
Shouldn't that embarrass the awardee?
Thank you very much.
So those are the core issues to worry us, because as we speak, many people have got all kinds of awards. Nobody remembers it. As a child, I grew up in Umuahia. You have Azikiwe Road. It was during civics that I found out who Zik was. Okay, that's the man they named the street after. For me, until that moment, Azikiwe Road is a road. I don't know the meaning of Azikiwe. Now, many of us are struggling to have one thing or the other named after us, forgetting that it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It does not matter. Nobody knows. We don't think, oh, my legacy. Who are you? Legacy? When all you have to struggle is impact where you can, lest you miss the opportunity, instead of selecting where to impact.
So where you are, touch a life. Don't be aiming at reaching, as you said, reaching the stadium. Right here where you are, stop to speak to this person.
And continue to the stadium.
And continue to the stadium. This person that you have spoken to may be
may actually be the one who will get to the stadium before you.
He may be the one who has the key to the generator house.
Actually. So while you're carrying a can of fuel, you ought to hand over to him.
Yes. So it's so important. I mean, to conclude on this whole entertainment industry, I am thinking about what are the little areas of entertainment. I mean, you did mention, you said, look, let's spread it out, not just Nollywood, but let's spread it out, the various elements of entertainment in our society. How can, you go to the motor park and you see some entertainer entertaining and people enjoying. What is the content? How is the content of his entertainment or her entertainment formed? How can we influence the content? You see this Calabar Carnival, Abuja Carnival, and they are singing all kinds of things. How can we influence the content of what they sing?
For me, beginning with the carnival and going to the motor park, carnivals usually have some relationship authorization from the cultural ministry.
Okay.
And somebody should feel the need to have a conversation, even if private, to emphasize that the purpose of carnivals
is to promote culture.
Yes, but even if what it promotes as culture in other climes like the Caribbean is naked girls,
It doesn't have
we
to be.
don't really have a culture of displaying naked women as a people.
No.
And therefore, please, XYZ doesn't have to be there. So that content impact, influencing the content, it should include conversations about all of this. The average Nigerian, all Nigerian cultures, their women come out better presented when they are clothed in their cultural regalia. Fully so. There might be some exposure, but the emphasis is not on the exposure.
It's not on the exposure.
And the attention doesn't go to it.
No.
But here the emphasis is on eroticism,
Yes.
with cultural content from the Caribbeans, and
That are foreign to
an
us.
emphasis on debauchery.
Yes.
So those are the things. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with carnivals. But what is it you set out to market? That there should be that kind of conversation.
So, that's what I mean. That there has to be a conversation between the organizers and the practitioners, so that we agree on what to project. And perhaps it is the vacuum. It is the absence of such intervention by those that should intervene and set the agenda. It is the absence of such setting of an agenda that makes just the practitioners all they know is.
Yeah, but you see, when children are allowed to draw up their curriculum, lesson 1 to the last lesson will be play. So when there's no moderator of higher understanding, that's the kind of thing you get. Now, talking about the motor parks, yes, in the course of one social work, we've had to relate with them, is actually to approach the leadership, usually. It's one place where there's a lot of discipline, but people don't know. Motor parks, markets, market leaders, motor park heads, there's a lot of discipline. It could cost you your livelihood if you fall out of line. If you approach the leadership and talk with them. Like there was an example we had. This particular market, we went, met with the leadership and said, "You were elected?" He said, "Yes." We met with him and his executives. First, they said we should give them money for the meeting. We said no. They said, "Well, we've come to tell you what is good for you." I say, "At least buy us." I say, "We will not. You should be ashamed of yourselves. You're older than us. You're men. Don't beg for drinks. You can afford it." The leader, the other one was getting angry. The leader said, "Please, please, let's hear what they have to say." Now, he told them, "You have a duty to ensure policemen don't arrest traders here." He said, "These people have come. How is that possible?" "You're the elected leader." He said, "Yes." "They all voted to choose you." "Yes." He said that I beat 3 people. I said, "Good. So go and meet with the DPO. If there's anybody they have issue with in this particular market, they should come and report to you.
Yes.
And you hand the person over to them. Make sure anybody here who has a quarrel with another colleague and takes him to the police instead of through you, if that fellow spends money in the police station or the police, the one who took him there should pay." They argued 2 hours of long conversation after everywhere was quiet. To cut a long story short, it happened. Police could no longer go there and arrest. Their issues were more organized. People will no longer come, you quarrel and pick you up. That's how societies change. Respect for the police intact. Really, if you then went later and say, "Oh, guy came to give you a bottle of drink," there's nothing. It's a relationship of mutual respect. And so you see how that could happen. People become aware of their rights without having to call the institution of state an enemy. And the institution of state knows its bounds without saying people are being subversive.
Yes.
And all of that. That is it.
In fact, if they know their work and the rationale for their work, they will say they have been helped.
Very much so.
The head of the motor park is helping to keep law and order.
Precisely. So he creates a relationship. So in that regard, you see, if it's possible from one place, the boys who are also in the markets, those who are learning some trade, who mentors them? They only pick up the reflexes of stealing and cheating. So the foundations are not in order, and people must begin from there. So this our conversation is not one of saying Nigeria ought to. No,
it's about
we're
what can I
saying
do?
Yes, it's in specific terms.
What can I do?
Do something where you are.
Yeah.
make a difference where you can. Don't, because you're making a difference, think you're then better than the other person. Maybe he's not yet conscious. The day he wakes up, he may be light years ahead of you.
I mean, it's we will end this discussion on this note. Every one of us, there's something we can do. I mean, God sent us into this world, and we are not to return without making some impact. And we just mentioned this last example of motor park. You know, the event we met a couple of days ago, was somebody who says, look, this girl that did something exceptional, returned this money, ran after me, let me honor this girl. That girl is going to go back to that petrol station
And continue her job.
and continue keeping those values because of what she has benefited, and teach others that, look, there is benefit in being honest. So the multiplier effect.
Yeah.
So we really don't have to, all of us, be at the National Assembly or be whatever. We can make an impact by doing one good act, touching a life, mentoring a young person, supporting a young person to build values, including going to the motor park, going to the streets, gathering those children on the streets, gathering those young men and women selling, running after vehicles, and mentoring them, supporting them in one way, in some little way, and then they will listen to you, and mentoring them. In this way, we will be able to bring some changes to our society. The whole question of national integration has to do with values.
Yes.
It is values that we use to bring people together. Money will not bring us together.
No.
Without those values, even if our sharing of cake were better done,
Without asking about baking anyway.
yeah, nobody talks about baking. Even if we shared the cakes better, and the derivation principle and sharing everything is much better, we can still destroy everything if there are no values.
Yeah.
Nations are built on values,
not on resources.
not on resources. Because I mean, Nigeria has more resources than Botswana, than many other nations that are doing well. So to end, what do you have to say to encourage people, forward-looking, conscientious Nigerians that are becoming discouraged today when they look at this scenario? There are many Nigerians who are committed to Nigeria and who have spent their life trying to do something to better them, but they keep getting discouraged with all these fires that are coming up everywhere. What word of encouragement do you have for them?
My take is that there has never been anybody who is serious about any form of change who met applause. Discouragement is the constant and irritating companion of any serious-minded person. So those who give up because of discouragement should ask themselves questions. Was I ready in the first place? Who encouraged our Lord Jesus Christ?
Nobody.
Who encouraged the Prophet Muhammad? Who encouraged Copernicus? Encouraged Copernicus for his discoveries? Who encouraged Wole Soyinka? Come on. Achebe with his first manuscript.
Yes.
If he was shocked when it was finally accepted. So when people talk discouragement, I shrug my shoulder. What is it you're looking for?
Yeah.
Encouragement. Where did it come in history for change to follow? Not one instance. So what are we
So
talking
what
about?
fuels change is conviction.
Conviction.
The power of
and
conviction.
the personal resolve to live for what you've come to understand to be right. Not the nodding approval of the crowd. No, the crowd only comes in after they've killed you for bringing the change. And then they make a means of livelihood out of it, and then they say, oh, and it becomes tradition.
So if somebody in our context and within the context of our discussion, if somebody decides to start producing movies with values, finds it difficult to get marketers, but he knows that, or she knows that this is something of value, there will come a time when society will value this because this is promoting values for nation building. Your word is keep going.
Keep at it. If what you like is egusi soup, but you notice that everybody likes banga soup, then against the dictate of your palate and your health, you switch to banga. You're not serious about being alive.
Yeah.
So the what do you call it? Impact is not about population. It's not about endorsement.
Yes.
It's about inner certainties. and they resolve to keep at it even when the crowd is booing.
Wonderful. Keep at it even when the crowd is booing. Because, especially with art, all forms of art, because some of the most classic works of art
were
today,
never recognized.
Fine art, for example.
Yeah.
Some of the works of art that are selling now for millions of dollars were left abandoned because
some rotatic.
Yes.
Somebody was considered even mad.
Yes. So, works of art may come before their time. And so, you have something to produce today in today's Nigeria that so many people are so materialistic and so carried away by witchcraft and gossip and so on. Produce something of value.
Leave it.
And leave it. Make sure it is well preserved.
In fact, on the final note, and this is a familiar terrain for you, Plato, the philosopher.
Yes.
Plato's real name, as you know, was Aristocles.
Yes.
He was one of the best Olympic athletes. Platon, the Greek word for broad. It's not like the Olympics today where you do 100 meters. In those days, you do several events. He was coming first in all his events. Platon, the broad one. That's how he took over his name, the son of an aristocrat. From listening to Socrates, he became a philosopher. Today, some people will even call you a liar if you say he was a sportsman.
A sportsman.
Values of the spirit. His search for truth, which he captured in the dialogues, today remain the classics for informed philosophical, spiritual conversation even. And so, the challenge of the family, when he saw the only wise man killed by an ignorant, he said, no, I must seek knowledge. All Plato needed to do was to take up leadership position, for which he was ready, given his lineage. He was to be one of the, but he switched. So, today, if Plato had been one of the leaders of Athens, we wouldn't have known.
We wouldn't have known.
But he added value to humanity. Today, we refer to the classics he left behind.
Father of Western philosophy. On this note, we will bring this program to an end. Dr. Okey Ikechukwu, versatile communications, information, media person and consultant, well sought after, and I'm happy that we had him here today to chat on these issues. And you will come back to this studio so that we discuss further. We all have a lot to do in this society. You have been around for some time and you have contributed a lot, but the fact that the society is still where it is shows that you still have more to contribute. We all still have more to contribute. As long as we are alive and the Lord has given us good health, we must keep discussing and we must keep trying to touch people by any means, by all means possible and valid. Thank you very much for coming, and God bless you.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.